Hey, it's Chris. Sporting some new bling today as well. One Piece. Got to support my boy Trafalgar Law. But that's not why you tuned in. You want to get the latest board game news, tidbits, and information from all over the internets. And that's why you tune in, because short and sweet and to the point with a little bit of commentary, rambling alongside of things. A little bit of rant if you're lucky. Let's get into it, right? This is awards season, folks. We are starting somehow in the middle of May to get to awards season. Does that make sense to you? Well, Spiel just announced their 3 main categories of nominees, not winners yet. And then we also had the other, Cardboard Edison, much less well known, still with a very good pedigree. Now, Spiel was kind of all over the place. People did not expect the Spiel results to be what they made. Now, not like Spiel predicting is like Emmy or Oscar predicting, but there were certain games that people were like, okay, I'm surprised by this, and okay, I'm a little less surprised by this. And again, full disclaimer on these awards, if you're not familiar with these awards, these are German Game of the Year awards, which means they have to meet very specific criteria that I talked about last year when I covered this. They have to have just come out in the past year in German, right? Doesn't matter when they came out in, say, where I live, over there. 2, this plays much heavier on the lighter side of things. If you're niche deep in the hobby, these games are all going to be scaled back. So you have your Spiel, your lighter weight style game. Dorfromantik, Fun Facts, and Next Station London. I knew of the first one, Dorfromantik, because there's a video game based on it, and I remember covering it on a previous news video. Fun Facts being a game where you're writing a guess on an arrow, rearranging the arrows, and then flipping them over to see who's actually in the right order based on that question that's proposed in the first place. Again, take it for what it is, but that's the other side of things. That's the really light side of things. The Kinderspiel on the other end of things is the kids' games. You have Karas Caramel, Gigamon, and Mysterium Kids. Mysterium Kids, okay. Again, kids games, say what you will. The last one is the Kennerspiel. The Kennerspiel is typically what you might think of a lighter to light midweight style game. Again, I don't want to say midweight because people are going to be attacking me in the comment section saying, oh, that's not midweight in my opinion. Well, it's not your opinion that matters. It's the German criteria. And so this is mid-ish weight for them. Challengers from CMON, Iki, second edition. Actually, it's hiding behind Batoku there. And then Planet Unknown. Probably the heaviest of those easily is Planet Unknown. And of those, I have played, and I haven't reviewed 2 of them, but I should have reviewed Planet Unknown by now, which is, again, sitting right behind me. If I had to pick one or the other, I'm going to pick Planet Unknown of those 3. Now, the disappointment I have is that the Spiel, I wanted Wandering Towers, one of my best games of 2022, my number 2 game of 2022, to be making this list. I just wonder why a game like that wouldn't make it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That is the first side of the awards. And what do you think? How many of those games did you actually know? How many of those games have you heard of? Me, not all of them by any means. And that's sort of a departure from the last couple of years that a lot of people have noticed as well. Now, you may not be as familiar with the second one, Cardboard Edison. Cardboard Edison, it's been around for a while, but they give their awards for great unpublished board games by a first-time designer. And the first 3 that came up here, and the first one that catch your eye, and that caught my eye, was actually the winner. It was called diatoms. If you're not familiar with a diatom is a photosynthesizing algae. And they've done it in a sense where you're doing microscopic proportions of matching different diatoms of different colors and shapes with strategic sort of azul-like placement, and you're going to be judging it at the end of the game for scoring conditions. The second one, again, very interesting theme, very interesting sort of combination of mechanics. It's bingo meets area control, but they say there's 0 luck, and that's Swords Over Scotland. How does that sound to you, right? That sounds like a very intriguing concept. And ingenuity definitely is rewarded here, and that got 2nd place. 3rd place here is Quilted. More of a tile laying, pattern building, playing on a central board, playing off of what's already down there. So again, 3 very solid games, and I'd love to see where these ones go from here. Print and play, crowdfunding, retail. And again, this awards pedigree is relatively well thought of, even though it may not be in the wider circles. Next up, we have to talk about it because it's the next big thing. Star Wars Unlimited. FFG finally gave us a little sneak peek into it. And you know what? To be clear, I really like the art. A lot of people are going to poo-poo this art. A lot of people are going to call it a little bit bleh. But I really like what they're going for. And they're going across the universe, across the lore of Star Wars in general. And I don't blame them for that. And they say that this is going to be the biggest Star Wars game. Not just the biggest Star Wars game, though. The biggest game they have done to date. And so that's sort of a little bit of a hype mechanism right there. But you're not going to get the game until 2024. But apparently the first release of it isn't going to be until 2024. Spirits of Rebellion, I believe. And they give you a little bit of gameplay content idea of how things are going to be going. Is you're going to have a space area, you're going to have a ground battle, and you're going to be using one or both or a combination thereof of those areas in order to knock out your opponent's bases. They don't say how exactly it's going to be done, but they say that this is going to be unlike all of the other style of games like this, because there's not going to be a limited, okay, in this setting you can only use this cards, in this setting you can only use these cards, right? It's unlimited. That's where the unlimited comes in. Any card, anytime, any place, any tournament level, however you want to customize your deck, carte blanche, essentially. Do what you want. And so again, I hate the model, but I think the concept is absolutely fantastic. And I love the art, and I'm a big Star Wars junkie, so is it going to get me to dip into the old pool to get some? Maybe. We'll see, because especially with Lorcana getting a head start, you have to wonder how that's going to affect things as well. Sorry. Breaking news on this one. Breaking news. Right prior to doing this, CMON threw up this big box as a teaser, something coming tomorrow, and then they revealed Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid, the board game. Now, you may be looking at this graphic like I did initially, and you said, Metal Gear Solid, that looks awesome. Metal Gear Solid is a cooperative game. Metal Gear Solid on crowd? No, my friends. Retail, straight to retail, with a caveat there. It's going to be pre-order, available right now, and guess what you get with a pre-order? An extra mini and an art graphic comic book novel sort of thing as well. But it's a big miniature that you're getting, and really, is it going to be that much gameplay content? But if this also looks familiar, it's because it is the long lost IDW, now defunct IDW Games property. The artwork looks very familiar, right? That's how you know it. Now, they've given actually some gameplay details over on the pre-order CMON website. 1 to 4 players, cooperative, skills, upgrades, asymmetry with the characters that you're going to have. The equipment, it's stealth-based, but 14 unique stealth scenarios with boss missions. Campaign, folks. Campaign. Boss battles. Also, right? Wouldn't be Metal Gear Solid without boss battles. You got 4 different characters. Snake, Meryl, Gray Fox, as well as Otakon. And they're all miniatures, right? You also have 6 bosses that are going to be included there as well. Ocelot, Ninja, Mantis, Wolf, Raven, and Liquid. Now, the pre-order miniature here is another boss. And so I was a little concerned about saying, okay, how much of the content is going to be pre-orderable, but you're going to be looking at just the big Metal Gear miniature. And I'm assuming that's going to play with Liquid in some sense. It's a weird sentence, but you know what I'm saying if you're an MSG aficionado. It's just, is it really going to be that much of a difference? And it's $100 to pre-order plus shipping. So not inexpensive by any means as well. I mean, the miniatures are miniatures, but this Metal Gear is actually freaking massive here. And the nice thing though, the very curious, and I give them kudos for this, because we don't see this a lot, especially on pre-orders at retail, right? They have the rule book up. Now there's a little scenario spoiler potential if you're, one of those people, but otherwise go check it out. I'll throw the link down below and go read the rulebook to see if any interest. Stealth-based games have not worked well for me in the past. I just haven't found the appeal. There was one on crowdfunding, miniature-based one that was just way too complicated, way too difficult, and that's what I fear with the nuance of all of these different icons of getting discovered and, having line of sight and those things. But color me intrigued, and wow, for it to end up from IDW now with CMON, right? Interesting. We'll see where this goes. Give you a quick glance at the rulebook here. 2 game modes, campaign and VR. So you have the ability to experience the modes depending on which you want to do. Sneaking stages and then your boss stages. Bosses are going to be asymmetric. They're going to have their own special setup. Lose conditions, anyone gets killed. You run out of time, or each of the stages are going to have their own unique asymmetric lose conditions in addition to that. A memory box down here is what you're going to be storing your equipment in between missions, and then they run you through just the basic concepts of the standard player actions here. And again, 7 different player actions, not insignificant there as well in terms of what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be having to interact with the line of sight, the attacking, the passive abilities, and of course, as for mentioned with the previous graphic, the box, right? So all the stuff they run you through here, it's actually a relatively detailed one. You can see the round structure, a 4-phase situation before the enemy phase goes, when they're trying to detect you or when the boss is taking its own turn. So you just don't see a lot of what the bosses are going to actually do and the differences between them. That's going to be the biggest issue. You got some codex down here that you're going to be obviously interacting with as well, without spoilers too much right there. Now, speaking of things that need more attention, though, we're going to switch gears here just for a second, and we're going to go over to a game that you may not be familiar with, but you may also, because it had a little bit of a wave when it came out, and this is called Regicide. If you're not familiar with Regicide, basically it's a regular deck of card-style games where you're taking one of the 4 suits and you're trying to knock out all of the face cards via the use of your own cards from your hand. And you're going to be attacking and dealing damage to the face cards. The face cards are going to do damage back to you, but if you can't discard enough cards from your hand to block that damage, well, then you're out. And if anybody on your team as a cooperative game gets out, well, you all lose. And you're supposed to make it through all of the face cards in order to win. And there's a few other nuances, and each of the suits has a different power and helps you either mitigate things or get more cards or discard more cards or block or do double damage and all that sort of thing, right? But now, if you're familiar with Legacy, or if that intriguing concept is really up your ilk, there's going to be a Legacy game. They just threw it up on social media this weekend that there's going to be a Legacy Regicide. Holy cow! Excited. Just, I mean, you know, it's probably going to be a crowdfunded game, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to make the exception for my no crowdfunded Legacy games if they go to crowdfunding. But I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for this one, and you should be too, because it's a great freaking game. It's one of the hardest games I own, period. We'll go back to the Star Wars theme here for a second. If you are familiar at all with the Villainous line of things as well, knowing then obviously that they made a Star Wars Villainous, not just the Disney Villainous, where you're playing as the bad guys with your self-contained deck trying to get your win condition before your opponents in sort of a multiplayer solitaire-esque vibe with, you know, with some interaction, but for the most part, you're doing your own thing, but you are having some take that, which is the divisive aspect, and, you know, which theme or which incorporation do you prefer? Well, again, I'll let you debate that in the comment section, but I recently announced a new expansion for that, Boba Fett, because it's titled Scum and Villainy. And obviously, since it's titled Scum and Villainy, the rumor or the assumption at this point is that there's going to be other bounty hunters like Cade Bane or a Singh, those other ones that are going to fall in that ilk. You know, he's going to be Bosk, IG-88. You know, I know my bounty hunters, folks. So anyway, but that's going to be the question. And is it going to change your opinion of the original? You know, again, if you like Villainous, great. If you don't, this one's not going to change your mind, whether it's this one, the Marvel one, or the Disney one. I also ran across some amazing news over on Twitter. One of the fellows that I follow on there, Cardboard East, who covers a lot of the Eastern Asian, that area, Pan-Pacific, games that come out of there, he retweeted that one of my favorite games in my collection, my favorite area control game called Rumble Nation, very small printing of a game from like, I don't know, 2015 or so. Absolutely fantastic game. It's going to be getting a deluxe version with new cards, new abilities coming out sometime this summer. The only question is, can I import it? It looks freaking fantastic. I cannot understate how awesome this game is. This is one of the first reviews I ever did on this channel. It was a crappy review. I should probably redo it, but I noticed it getting some wave. I saw the Watch It Played people played it a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, and they're big on it too. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to make some waves when it comes out. And I said this in my original review, if it's still on the channel at the very beginning of the channel. Like I said, when this gets more wide mass appeal, or I said when this gets more wide mass availability, people are going to love it. Liege, baby, strikes again. What else do we got going on though? Well, with the new stuff, we're also getting 2 new upcoming expansions for one of my new favorite games, Summoner Wars 2. I'll have a review out in a short time, but Summoner Wars 2, High Elves, I think Swamp Orcs, Plaid Hat does the cycle in this game. And to be frank with you, I don't think I could ever have enough of this game. I love this game. I cannot tell you how much I love this game. Because if you watch me at all on this channel, you know that I love these 2-player duelers, right? Your Yami, your Exceed, your Battlecon, your Soccer Arms. I love this style of things. And this gives more of a card play element, and I love that. And it's more controlled. It's more dynamic. It has just more of a tense feeling with the limited number of cards as you go through your deck. And how do you get more energy to buy your cards if you're going to not have them enough to get them later? And it's just an interesting, incredibly good dynamic. And I understand why it's so highly rated on Board Game Geek, especially the 2nd edition now, and why it got a 2nd edition, because it's freaking amazing. But we're going to see more, and Plaid Hat just announced a couple more. And so just continue to expect to see goodness. And it's really just about finding the faction that's right for you. I just played with the Dark Elves. Awesome. There you go. Switching gears. Garphill Games also just announced that they're doing a redux, whatever the heck that means, of one of their other previous games, Shipwrights of the North Sea. And it's kind of a weird thing because this game already has 2 editions as well as an expansion, and they flat out say on the new Board Game Geek entry that it's an entirely new game. It's going to share a thematic element and a player goal, but the core gameplay is completely rebuilt and give you more of an experience which is more in line with their other games. Well, then why not just title it something else? That's kind of weird to me. I guess you're going off of name recognition here, which again is fine, but why title it the same thing? Why? Doesn't make any sense to me, in my brain at least. Maybe you can tell me why in the comment section. Inevitably, I'm always wrong on these things too, so take that for what you will. Going over to the IP side of things, if you may know these names, Neil Gaiman as well as Terry Pratchett, well, we're going to see a Good Omens collaboration, not on the screen, but now on the tabletop, as they're going to be giving you a 15 to 30 minute game that's going to be 7 cooperative battles through the use of cards and dice based on the system or the referred to type games in the series / book itself. It's over now actually on pre-order on Renegade Game Studios, but that's about all the information that's out there because it's also not even on Board Game Geek at this point. So were you a fan of the IP? Does that, entice you? If you're a fan of either of those authors, is it going to be good like talk? But we'll kind of see where that goes as well. Next up, we're going to go back to crowdfunding for a second here. And I covered this very briefly and alluding to it in a different video. But Steeped Games, the makers of Chai and Chai Tea for Two, you may recognize those titles. Well, a couple weeks ago, an astute observer, I think it was either on Board Game Geek or Reddit, noticed that their company was dissolved in Canada, where they're based out of. And what does that actually mean for a good, more than should be not delivered first time around, as well as the 2-player version of their game as well? Well, people are kind of wondering because dissolution of the company, what's going to happen to the assets? Are the assets gone? Are there going to be any availability for actually getting those games in the first place? And unfortunately, when you go over to the crowdfunding page here in a second, as you can see, 5,000 backers, almost $200,000 raised. Well, unfortunately, the last update is October of 2022, saying that they're wrapping up manufacturing. Yeah, that's a problem. Well, and then they go over to the comment section here. Dave, I'm not sure if that's one of the designers or not, because the other by name is Dan and Connie. So he says he's getting paid, and so that's evidence that stuff is still there. But if stuff is still there, 6 months, folks, 6 months, no updates, 6 months since you were supposed to be ramping up manufacturing, production. Where are things at? Where are the shipping? Where is all that stuff? Shipping has come down. Where's all the money, folks? Where's all the money? Or better yet, where are the games? Simple answer to either question would be nice. Silence, not a good way to go. Not a good way to go, as we've learned in other cases at all. 2 new other expansions of note that we should talk about. One of my other top 10 games of the year, War of the Ring, wherever it is, hiding again. War of the Ring, the card game, is getting an expansion, Against the Shadows, I believe, in this coming summer or so, summer/fall. And the interesting thing is it's going to bring you a cooperative mode as well as a solo mode. People were clamoring for the solo mode, which I can understand. The other thing that I just really want is I just want more cards to customize more of the decks, a little bit more from that aspect of things. And I have yet to see a whole lot of details of what we're going to be getting, if that's going to be true, or if it's really just going to mainly focus on those 2 aspects and not necessarily give more depth. Not that it necessarily needs it, but it would be super awesome nice. The other thing, spanning way outside of my comfort zone, we're going to talk about Cuba Libre. And Cuba Libre is a GMT coin series style war game, and they just announced that this appears to be not only an expansion for that, but a standalone expansion at that, which is an entirely new 4-player coin game, they say, called Resisting Revolution. There's also going to be included a miniature 2-player game called The Day of Pigs. We're exploring the hypothetical variants of a failed Bay of Pigs invasion, as well as basically the whole concept is consolidation of Castro's government back in the 50s and 60s. 16 new event cards, as well as an optional 3-player variant scenario. I know that this is a relatively well thought of GMT game. That's about all I know, though. You can tell me in the comment section what else I need to know about it, because it's definitely not going to be showing in my collection. But for those of you that are really big fans, I thought you would want to know as well. So that's it. That's all I got. That's a relatively shorter than usual news roundup. A little bit of everything as well across the crowdfunding, retail, and, failing side of things. Always with a heavy heart. Always with a heavy heart that I do that. So, take it for what you will. But there you go. Don't wish for poor things to happen. But we got to cover them regardless, because we got to talk about stuff too. Going back to my video earlier in the week, talking about these things that come up, right? Like, these are things that we have to talk about in the hobby as a whole, whether it's, the Quackalope with the ITU thing, or, these failed Kickstarter campaigns, or just, what some of the other ongoings are, shining a spotlight on them. And I have no problem doing it. And sort of like an almost, not really ombudsman, but like that sort of style of things. As I've seen someone posting on Twitter was saying, like, maybe GAMA, G-A-M-A, could come up with some guidelines, general guidelines about what we should be doing, how we should be acting, how we, that sort of thing. you know, and I'm not the best and the most eloquent one to be putting out like guidelines like that, but you know, I know it when I see it, right? Or I know it when I have concerns about it. And so I'm going to continue to talk about these things, spotlight them, and do whatever I can just because I want our hobby as a whole to grow and not to have these issues in the first place going forward. So any thoughts on that? Any comments about that? Let me know what you think as well down below. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying around and sticking with me. Stay classy. Have a great freaking fantastic day. Peace out.